and welcome everybody. I hope everybody had a good weekend, today, most likely, I don't know what everybody would like to discuss about, but I thought that we can get to sort out, first of all, any questions about the applications, the PPP applications, and also get a census from the people who participate in this town hall, if they have managed to submit an application, any difficulties they've had, and anything else anybody would like to share in terms of this entire process. We have also Costas on the line, and I just saw also Bob.
Hi, Dimi. Hi, Costas.
Hey, hi, Bob. How are you?
Hello, everybody.
All right, then you guys can unmute your mics and you can speak if you like. So let me share with you about our experience with the application for the PPP program, and then everybody can ask questions if they have. So we have 4 or 5 different companies that would be eligible to apply for the PPP program. Okay, the financial institutions that we do banking with are the financial institutions we do banking with are Citibank.
Did you meet him when he was here?
Guys, somebody is speaking in the background. Can you guys? Okay, so it is Citibank, Capital One, TD Bank, and Bethpage. Now, Bethpage, we found out that they don't accept any applications. They are not going to participate in the program. Capital One, they are still struggling to go through their application process. Citibank, they are still working on it. As far as I understand, they have yet to release their application process, and TD Bank just this morning started going through the application, allowed the application process to start going through. Now, I'll tell you that I started filling out the TD Bank application for one of our companies, and there are a lot of issues. Okay, so initially they said in the application process that we would have to submit a PDF of the actual SBA application. However, as we were going through the process, it appeared that we did not have to, because every single question and more that were in the application, in the written application, we had to answer and enter this question in regular fields in the system. And when you got to a point to review all of your answers, 2 things happened. One, that the system was taking the dates of birth and other dates wrong. What do I mean by that? It would, every date that I would put in the system, all right, like my birthday is June 4, okay, the system, I would put June 4 and it will default to June 3rd. Costas is, my business partner's date of birth is January 14. The system would default to January 13. All the dates, it would go a date back. So we would have to put like a day in advance in order for the system to go back to the original date. So anyway, we fixed that. But when we got to the point to say, okay, yeah, we're submitting this information, then what happens at TD Bank is another page comes out and it says, now you can start attaching your records. And they have for you to attach 940s, 941s, IDs, bank statements demonstrating that you have paid from that bank account payroll. If you are claiming any health insurance benefits for your employees, they want to have a statement of that. Whoever does not submit 941s, they wanted to see 944s. And what else? And then they asked actually for individual monthly payroll statements. Now, instead of submitting that, I submitted something else because our payroll company, which is Paychecks, they have been very nice and they created an actual form just for that. They created like a report that it will give you exactly your FICA amounts, your payroll amounts. They'll make all the calculations for what you can claim for an amount there. So then we submitted that in writing. So we submitted in a period of about 4 hours with all of the mistakes and going back and forth and downloading the forms. We submitted for one company. So what we learned now to do is we have to prepare all that stuff for the rest of the companies ahead of time so that we can go ahead and do them faster when Citibank opens up their portal. So this is basically what I know. I also know that up and until Sunday, I know that those financial institutions that had opened up their portals for application submissions, there were about $5.5 to $6 billion submitted. That's a small amount based on what is expected at the end of the day that will be submitted for the program. So please provide any other feedback or ask any questions that you may have. You can speak up or you can put your questions on the chat section.
Today I asked so I'm dealing directly with a president of a bank. And I asked him to give me the bank side of their perception of how this is all going. You know, we have the borrower to the bank, then you have the bank and the SBA, and the SBA and the Federal Reserve, right? And so there's different relationships that all have to come together for all of this to end up having the stimulus money land in your bank account. And it seems like the bank to SBA connection is very unorganized and overrun with volume. And you know, there are banks that themselves have their own issues between the borrower and the bank getting like Dimi was just talking about, that process of getting your 2483, you know, application complete with supporting documentation. But once that's done, now the bank has to submit a 2484 to the SBA, and there's a system called E-Tran that's in place between the banks and the SBA, and the E-Tran system's not working great. And so I don't know if it's like a technical glitch or issue or just a volume issue or what it is, but between the banks and the SBA, they're all having issues there. In Michigan, a lot of the banks are trying to form one group to do a lot of things in common through. So banks are doing that kind of thing. so the you know, the bottom line of it is the intended ease of access to funding that that the politicians want in reality is not going to, it's not looking like it's going to be all that fast. They have I've been given no indication how long they think it's going to take, you know, from the bank. No one's willing to, you know, go on the record for that kind of, you know, information. So, you know, it's think about the entire process. Right now we're in step one. Step one is get your application in. Then there's step two is figuring out your 8 weeks after the loan and how does all of that work operationally and with cash flow and adjusting what people are doing to the volumes that you have and what productive use do you have of people who might be being paid to, you know, more than you have work to do. And then there's the beyond the 8 weeks, right? This PPP loan is building a bridge to 8 weeks from now. But you as a business owner have to understand what it takes to build a bridge to the end of the year. And the bridge that, in some cases, the PPP loan bridge takes you all the way. I believe that's going to be the exception. Not a high percentage of practices will get there strictly from this PPP loan. Every single person that's connected to anybody in government knows that there's a next wave of stimulus already being worked on in Congress. But you know, I don't think that we as business owners should be just kind of hoping that that's somebody else is now going to come in and build the second half of the bridge for us, right? We got to look at what do we do in this next 8 weeks when you know the bridge has started and we've got something under us for 8 weeks. We got to get to the end of that 8 weeks with a plan for how we keep it together for the year. And so there's multiple strategies that need to be thought through about how that applies to you in terms of maintaining revenue. Biggest driver of all is what percentage of your revenue do you believe you're going to keep month by month by month by month. And then the biggest I guess math problem that I'm seeing as I'm gathering, so I now have, I'm starting to get a view of what the physical therapy private practice industry looks like nationally in terms of expectations around the data. This process that I've created for submitting a form, getting a PPP loan analysis and looking at cash flow is really I'm now aggregating the data and looking at what the country looks like as a whole. And the more of these we have, the clearer that picture and the more accurate that picture is going to be. So don't think of this as I just got to do what it takes now to get my loan application. And you got to really be thinking about the 3 phases, the middle phase of the 8 weeks and the rest of the year being the hard part of the phase, really figuring out what you do with revenue preservation, with potential new lines of revenue, with how you're going to manage a reduction in fixed overhead that is not payroll fixed overhead. This is a big problem. The fixed expense that you have that's non-payroll can't go away. I mean, it can't collapse. You can collapse payroll with revenue. Variable expenses take care of themselves. But you have things like rent and things that are fixed overhead that are there, that are commitments that don't go away even if your revenue goes to 0. So there are scenarios where you could cut 100% of your staff and still have to spend money on things. So, you know, no staff means no production, means no revenue. So we really have to think about how you can support the top line as much as possible. And I know that's not easy, but that's the game, that's the exercise. How do we support top line so that the gap that's going to be created by the loss in revenue is a little bit less? 10% less. Right now, it seems like the number is we're 10% short nationally on getting the bridge connected to the other side. 10% of normal revenue. So
that is at the national level.
That's nationally so far, based on what I have. This was a roll
That's
up
from
of
the 50
50 practices so far, and as soon as I have another 50, I'll roll it up again. So I believe it's valuable just in the exercise of understanding. When you're in kind of chaos, this is chaos for everybody right now, right? There's many moving parts. You can't control everything. You can't even know all of the things that are going to happen. And so what you want to do in that environment is to have some context for something that seems to make sense and start to align other choices and decisions around that thing. And doing a projection like this gives you a thing that now you can say, based on these variables, based on these assumptions that I made, this is the result of that. And if that result doesn't look good, then you got to start to think about things differently. At least you've got something to start to solve a problem around. And that's why I created this, to just help people have some kind of structure to get to the other side. It literally takes me, if you email me for the form, I can turn it around in 10 seconds. And if you complete the form, there's work in that, because you have to know all of your data points that you need to get through this entire PPP loan process. Not just about getting the loan, it's about the FTEs and the change and how you're going to staff and all that, and what's going to result in, what's going to become your allowable use and how much of that's forgivable. And you're going to have to go through that process with your bank to get the loan forgiven. So on the front end, we already know what those variables are. We already know what those data points are. So this process kind of forces you to get that in order now. You should have it in order now. And once you've done that, then it gives you a result based on those assumptions. And the process is valuable, just doing it, even though it's not going to necessarily change your loan amount. It helps to start create some structure around how to think the problem through beginning to end. It's a big problem.
And I'm going to mention again to people about the resource website where they can get that information and to email to you. But essentially, if we look what is available out there in terms of resources, and we gave you actually, let me see if I can bring up the website so I can show you the resources right now. Oops, that's not good. I'm showing information that is not supposed to be there. Okay, so let's see here. Under savephysicaltherapy.com, if you go to resources right here, and I'm going to talk about Bob's resource, but if you go right here where it says loan programs comparisons, this is going to give you like a comparison of all different possibilities, okay? So I don't know how many of you will find use to the unemployment component or the FFCRA credit that you can get. I don't know how many people will find usefulness to that. Maybe some companies that are really large physical therapy corporations might find some usefulness to this, but I think that the vast majority of people, they are going to be taking advantage of the PPP loan program and of the EIDL program. Okay, I think these are the two programs that most people are going to be taking advantage of. Now, the EIDL program does give you up to $10,000 that can be forgiven but then it allows you to borrow additional money if you need, at a rate of 3.75% if you are a non-profit organization. If you are I'm sorry, a profit organization. If you are a non-profit, you can do 2.75. Now, this $10,000, the initial $10,000 you get from them, in order for this to be forgiven, it has to be used for other purposes different than what you are going to use for the PPP loan. Because if you use it for the same purposes, then you cannot double dip. It has to be incorporated within your PPP loan. So they're not going to give you that. But if you use it for separate reasons, different purposes, then you can take advantage of that. So, but again, even if you do all that, you really need to see how you will spend this money wisely, empowering your organization, and not waiting until you exhaust this money and then you have no resources to stand up on your feet again. All right. Unfortunately, some of the provisions that were announced on Friday night, they were kind of unfavorable to some of us. So let me give you examples. There are some physical therapists that they don't draw a W-2. So they don't have a W-2 income. Maybe they don't even have a 1099 income. They just draw owner distribution. So they have just a K-1. To my understanding, people who have just a K-1, right now, there is nothing that I read that they can apply for a loan or to apply for something that could be forgiven, okay? I don't know if there is a different, you guys have different data, but that's my interpretation, at least based on.
Yeah, I can clarify that. So if you're an LLC, and you as the LLC owner or managing member is what you technically are as in an LLC, your income, your individual income is entirely delivered to you through just draws that you take out of the company, and that is put, you file your income on a K-1. Mm-hmm. You can still have up to 500 employees, and all of your employees and all of that spend and all of that money
you can get the government
is totally in this program. Where there's confusion, or so if you have a $100,000 a month payroll, you can submit and get a loan and have forgivable amounts, all based on what you pay your W-2 people. For you personally, as the owner that's only paid through K-1, is where the confusion is. Yeah. They've accounted for sole proprietors, self-employeds, independent contractors, every other structure, pretty much. There's a pathway for the owner, the business owner, to get a loan amount that pays them up to $100,000 a year, and is used. It can be an allowable use expense during the 8 weeks. The LLC managing member K-1 is the one hole in this thing that isn't clearly identified, but they have clearly identified it in the other scenarios. So I believe what's going to happen is it's your bank that's going to process your application. That's going to decide whether or not you can include $83.33 a month for you as a K-1 person, not the SBA, because the banks have given 100% authority to approve the loans, 100%. And I did see a comment in the chat, which is incorrect. The government is guaranteeing the loans 100%. The banks have no risk. This loan is 100% guaranteed by the federal government. So the bank has 100% authority to grant the loan, process it, So it's going to come down to your relationship and communication between you and the bank as to whether or not they're going to allow some number for you as a K1 in the loan amount. That's the only piece of this that's confusing. And if they disallow you and don't allow it, then your loan amount will be based on how much you pay all your other people.
The other component that they did on Friday night, they excluded from the calculation 1099s from your
right, but they created the 1099s have their own pathway, right?
Correct.
Right.
But here is the thing, and then you can give us some data on that in terms of what has been published. But here is the problem that I see here, right? It's more a problem in regards to the relationship between a private practice owner and a 1099 associate that practice has. So let's look at this. If you are a private practice owner, you have W-2 employees, right? Those W-2 employees, you will, once you get the money, you can bring them back if you have let them go, or you can increase their time to full-time from part-time, or you can do whatever you arrange with them that can benefit your practice, where you can create assignments for them to do, either seeing patients or other things, where doing telehealth or organizing your practice, doing things to help prepare your practice for the post-COVID-19 era, right? Whatever that is, 2, 3, 4 months from now, whatever that period of time will be. But if the same thing does not apply for a 1099 employee, the 1099 associate, because the associate will have to go and apply on their own to receive that loan. I mean, the relationship then is not maintained necessarily between you and the employee. You see, you as an employer, in order to get some of this money back forgiven, or all of it, you have to maintain your W-2 employees. But what binds that 1099 person who applied and they received money on their own, what do they have to do for that money to be forgiven for them? You see, that's where I'm missing the connection. So why, if that 1099 employee, person, associate, receives, let's say, I don't know, $20,000 from the PPP proceedings, do they have any incentive to come back and tell you, hey, can I get back to work with you? Can I do something for you?
Yeah, that is, that's completing the loop, right? The independent contractor can apply for a loan up to a maximum of $8,333 a month times 2.5. So let's call it $20,000. And they can pay themselves over a 2-month period of time following receipt of the loan, a maximum of $83.33 a month, right? So they can pay themselves a wage for 2 months at the annual rate of $100,000 a year. Now, if they're working for you during that 2 months, the way that pathway has been constructed is they should be working for you for free.
Well,
right? Because the government has paid them to work for you. They just didn't pay you to pay them to work for you.
Correct. So then the question then is, will they create something where some employer, some company will have to certify that that person indeed worked so they can get that money forgiven, or no?
Yeah, and that independent contractors, sole proprietors, self-employed are not allowed to apply until this Friday.
Yeah.
So that's a different process for them. It's, I'm sure, a different application for them. Haven't seen any details on exactly what that looks like, But the reason they carved that out and said, you guys are on your own getting your own money is because if you pay the independent contractor and count them under your loan calculation as part of your payroll cost, and then pay them in the middle and spend money on them that's going to be forgiven, right? Then they can't do it for themselves because their pay is already in the system, right? And you can't have it in the system both ways. So they had to decide either who the 1099 worked with controlled the 1099's access to money, or did the 1099 do it themselves? And they decided that, well, technically they're independent, right? So they just do it on their own. That's the way it went.
But they have to create something to have some sort of certification process that these people did not just sit home doing nothing, collecting 83.33 per month, and this money gets forgiven. They have to show that they worked for someone, they did something to produce for this money. Otherwise, unless they have no forgiving process.
I think as someone who that independent contractor works with, you're going to want to have something in the relationship about what productive use of their time they're having on your behalf. There's nothing in this law anywhere that says that anyone who's receiving funds from the loan has to do any work.
That's true.
Yeah, it's free money.
So yeah, I just believe that a business could control that relationship with a 1099 person much better than now that plus the application process would have been easier. We would have saved so many thousands of additional applications, but now they have to be submitted by the 1099 people. It's going to be a nightmare too.
Yeah, I think the bottom line is that if you're using independent contractors, that you discuss with the independent contractor what your relationship with them is like during this 8 weeks, post loan, and know, if they're not submitting for their own loan, they're not being compensated, and you can't compensate them and get reimbursed through this loan program for them. So that's really their only option to get paid, is to do their own application, and then you guys work out what the practical working relationship is between you, and that's the best you can do right now, because there's still a lot of confusion in that pathway.
Yeah. Unless there is some different clarification, then what will save that working relationship would be that there will be some sort of promise that this working relationship will continue in the future. So it's a matter of relationship then than anything.
Yeah.
Out of curiosity, I would like to ask, can you guys either say or type if you have submitted or you have not submitted an application yet? If you have, type the word yes. If you have not, type the word no, so that we can see how many people have submitted and how many they have not. Okay, so, and if those of you who have submitted, actually, let me change it now. Let me say, type yes and the bank, or no and the bank that you have. So I'm typing yes, TD Bank, and I'm also writing no for the other companies, Citibank. So like what I did, no Citibank. Yeah, we're waiting on Citibank. SunTrust, okay. SunTrust is one that is, okay, Midwestone, Frost Bank, Pinnacle, First Merchants. Those are banks that they're allowing submission. Some people say no, some more people say no. Okay. All right, so those of you who submitted already, any kind of advice you have to give to the people who are with us who have not submitted yet? I mean, my advice would be have all of your documents ready. Chase took my request and they said the rep will reach out to us. Wow, I thought that Chase was fully accepting the whole process.
I think the bigger the bank, the more problem they're having.
Yeah, it seems that way. People who have smaller banks or community banks may have an easier time on this.
Yeah, the comment that just came across, I believe you're going to find that to be true everywhere with every bank, even though the law says that a prior banking relationship with the borrower is not necessary, that it is going, that the banks are deciding not to take applications from non-existing customers because they can't even process their existing customers expeditiously enough. So this is not the time to try to use this to establish a new banking relationship.
Yeah. So a prior relationship then is necessary for most banks to have.
So I want to make a point here. You know, those are numbers, guys. No matter what, one or the other way, the application is going to go through. You're going to get your money. Again, we don't know when. It might take a week, might take 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And as Bob said earlier, and Demi, you know, budgeting your existing operation right now is extremely important because, again, the money that we're going to get, it's still a loan. Yes, we're going to be able to forgive part of this, but looking at the future and then maintaining business, it's the biggest concern of all of us, right? You know, that question mark, what's going to happen 2 months from now, 3 months from now? Is the public going to be available or able to come back and get treated? Are they going to be able to have insurance? There are a lot of questions that we don't know. So what we try to do here, more of this, is to make sure that we keep a PR going and keep in touch with your base, your clients, no matter what, whether they're coming in or not, is extremely important to keep communicating with them. And it's very, very interesting. And if you don't mind, I want to share something with the group. So I'm going to share with you guys an article that I discovered recently. Let me find it, of course. Let me see, that's the one. And yes, do you see my screen?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, this is a very old study, 1997, but it doesn't matter how old it is. It doesn't matter what exactly they did, but this is on social ties and susceptibility to the common cold. Okay, now again, common cold, coronavirus, there are some similarities. And what this doctor did, he got like a number of subjects, and he gave to them nasal drops containing rhinoviruses, which is a very interesting concept to think about, is that he was allowed to do that back in the 90s. But the point here is what? Conclusion. More diverse social networks were associated with a greater resistance to upper respiratory illness. Now, this is totally amazing to me, at least, the fact that people that they have social contacts, they have less symptoms. This is totally related to a lifestyle. What is your lifestyle, your patient lifestyles, and what you can do about that? Of course, of messages about your diet right now, exercise more, and that's something we can communicate as physical therapists to our clients. And of course, it is how many people they come in contact with in a weekly basis. On this study, they say that if you had 6 contacts in a period of a week, you had less chances to express symptoms compared to other subjects that they had less than 6 contacts.
And it
So
to be
my translation here is, what about if we start communicating an extra phone call, a text message to our clients? They're not going to reach to you. You reach to them. You're going to save lives by increasing communication with your clients. That's my take, and that's what we start doing today here, texting messages like, you know, hey, you know, take care of yourself, or codes, something happy and nice for people to think and also consider that there are other people out there thinking about them. Extremely important.
And what Costa says, again, let's clarify that we don't necessarily mean get into the physical presence of these people. You can do it through phone calls, through stuff like that, through social media communication, text messaging, and all that. And we do that actually with all of our staff. We have created now, we were doing individual texting to staff, and we just created yesterday a WhatsApp group, and everybody's participating. They send comments, pictures of their kids, pictures of their animals, and it creates a nice culture there. like with more of a social communication with the staff. Since I have, before people start drifting away from the meeting, I just want to share something. Guys, we recently created this website, PT for Heroes. And this is a website where we are intending to have all of you, thousands of physical therapists and practice owners around the country, where they would offer free telehealth services to people who are in the front lines. You can go to www.ptforheroes.com and you can ask to participate right here. You can just put your name, the name of your practice. You can even upload your logo, and we will get you on here. We're planning to make a huge campaign on this, social media campaign and everything, and we're planning to start, the people who are participating on this, start offering some free telehealth physical therapy to those people in the front lines of COVID-19. They're working endless hours, as you know. If they can get in front of a computer or in front of a phone and get the help from a PT to do some exercises to alleviate their problems, that would be a great thing. And of course, with that, we will provide you guys free PR guidance. We are communicating already. New York Post will be doing a story on this. I'm sure that we're methodically working on having this exposed to mass media. So if you would like to be part of this movement, please come on board. What's that? Try a telepsychotherapy for these heroes too. Okay, so there is also psychotherapy. That's great. I mean, anything that we can do to help these people. But I mean, we're promoting the PT because, you know, we are PTs in this group, and that's what we are trying to promote at this point. So any questions? Bob had to run actually, and any questions that anybody has? All right. Okay. Also, again, you can get all of the information if you go to Save Physical Therapy. You can go here to register for the upcoming webinar, which is taking place this Wednesday on tele-PT and marketing. It will be a very, very interesting event. You can register here, or if you want to get access to the past webinars, again, in the same website, you can go and watch any of the PT Town Hall meetings that we have. You can do the tele-PT and billing webinar, the diagnostics webinar. We have a lot of different webinars that you could be reviewing that we did in the past. So thank you all at this point. Costa, unless there is anything with you, we'll see everybody tomorrow.
All is well, guys. Take care now.
All right. Take care, everyone.
Be healthy.
See you all tomorrow. Be healthy.